Hi everyone, this is Sculpt number 3, day number 3. For this one I wanted to, I've been watching some cartoons, specifically Final Space on Netflix, and I really love the cartoony style. It reminds me a lot of Rick and Morty as well, which I like a lot. But I really like kind of the simplicity of the designs. So I thought I would do something a little bit kind of towards that general style and a little bit inspired by that show. So I decided to make like kind of an alternate version of the Quinn character, which I thought would be cool. So for this one I'm starting using Sculptris, which is kind of like Dynatopo and Blender. And you know, it has advantages, so it's a bit easier to like extrude your sculpt. So I started using that a little bit. The problem that I have with it is that, you know, it works, it changes the resolution of your mesh depending on the size of your brush, and I think that's cool most of the time, but I like to do a lot of like pushing and pulling and smoothing with very large brush sizes, and so when you increase the brush size you then lower the resolution. So I kind of quickly switched to Dynamesh with this one. So maybe there's a setting where you can change the fact that it's changing the resolution based on your brush size in Sculptris. So I'll check that out, because it is nice to extrude kind of dynamically. So again, looks a bit shitty for the first 10 minutes, and then things start fleshing out. This one I wasn't really like, I had some reference of the character from Final Space, but I didn't have like a clear picture in my mind. I just wanted to first of all get kind of those proportions to look alright, and I struggled quite a bit with this one actually. Almost went over the 1 hour mark, specifically as you'll see with the face, because you know, sculpting like good looking stylized cartoon faces is kind of difficult. Like stylized faces is one thing, like what you have in like Overwatch characters, or like even Fortnite characters. Those are stylized, you know, they just have kind of exaggerated and simplified features. But cartoon and like anime kind of features and shapes, it's very different from stylized, depending on, you know, what your terminology is. But in general, like the shape and the volume of characters like, you know, this one from Final Space or Rick and Morty or stuff like that is very it's so simplified that it's difficult a lot of the times to make it work in 3D, because it's not drawn to be accurate from all angles. So, you know, proportionally they often change the proportion based on the angle of the camera. So it's difficult to make that work in 3D, and I struggle quite a bit with it. Also trying to improve my my process by using the slice tools, but I don't know, I was having some trouble with the slice tool, as you can see here, where it was like half the time it was actually slicing and half the time it was just creating a poly group, or instead of slicing I mean trimming, because it's supposed to like trim, but I guess it's depending on the angle, and maybe it had something to do with the symmetry, the fact that I'm using symmetry as well. So I was just messing around, and then I just got annoyed and confused with it, and then just forgot about it, because, you know, I don't want to waste too much time trying to figure out tools if I have 50 minutes to sculpt a full character. So here I very quickly decided I wanted to have like really bulky boots, kind of like moon boots, kind of like really just bulky boots, and so that's something that's gonna stick with this sculpt. trying to figure out also like what kind of outfit the character is supposed to have, and you know, when in doubt, just add a belt. Although that's also something I want to try and maybe get away from a little bit, because it's kind of, you know, it's getting a little bit too repetitive, and it's almost like too easy of a solution design wise. But it is nice, you know, belts usually help out with breaking up the character's inner composition, so it is very useful tool in design. Just gotta be careful also where you place the belt in terms of like the whole overall size of the character. Like, you don't want to necessarily put it like at exactly 50% of the height, and I think I might have actually done that, so I wasn't really paying that much attention. So usually things kind of look a little bit awkward if you just slice them in a perfect half. But yeah, I wasn't really thinking too much about that. So I'm just figuring out the costume design a little bit, and adding kind of a color. So it's half, I would say it's half inspired by the character in Final Space. I like to think it's like an alternate reality or an alternate version of the asset. So obviously, again, going with the shoulder pads. Everyone loves shoulder pads. I definitely do. And again, it's also a good way to break up the silhouette. One thing I am starting to notice is that for like what I'm doing here, which is kind of sketching out ideas, the symmetry is kind of a it's not helping in designing the character, is what I found. Like, it's a good starting point to have symmetry, but at the end of the day, the purpose of having a character concept is not really to understand the details that are on the character, but it's to understand the character. And part of the character is the character's attitude and personality, and you know, that kind of stuff. And a lot of that can be communicated through the character's attitude and the pose of the character, like whether they're slouched over or, you know, leaning towards one side. So I'm considering maybe on the next sketches to figure out a way that I can work in a pose, maybe with like topological symmetry, or maybe just actually splitting up pieces. And yeah, I gotta figure that out, because it is kind of a little bit of a hindrance to work with symmetry that much. So I'm gonna be struggling with the face in this one quite a bit. I'm not used to doing these kind of super cartoony faces, so it takes a while to really. It's very frustrating to get the shape to look right. Like the character's face looks like just a mess for a very long time, and then I get to a point where I kind of do like it at some point. But by that point I'm already, I think, at like 40 minutes, and so then I have to rush kind of to get the rest of the character done. But you'll see that. So I definitely want to practice more of these kind of style faces and characters. Maybe one of the next sculpts I'll just focus on just the head, or maybe a bust or something like that, so we can really practice getting those kinds of style faces sketched out. Alright, well, I hope that again, this video is kind of interesting. I'm mainly doing it for myself, just to practice, but I do hope that this is useful stuff to share with you guys as well. Hope you enjoyed the video.